everybody. So, we have a special guest today. He has been mentored by DJ, producer, Grammy nominated Danny Tenaglia. He has worked with a whole lot of artist legends, Francois D, Jenny Krivitz, and Jacqueline Closel. And he has been out there since the age of 14. He's been working as public relations since the age of 18. And now he's one of the creative director for Sullivan Room, and he is an awesome DJ. Give it up for Min Disco. Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me, guys.
Yes. Oh, thank you. We like to believe that this show is by DJ for DJs.
That's cool. That's a cool concept. You guys doing a good job.
100%.
So, how are you today in this lovely snowy day?
It is a lovely snowy day. You know, there's beauty in every season, so to speak. You know, it's a bit chilly outside, but we definitely got some heat cooking up over here.
Thank you.
Yes. So, you have been doing this from the age of 14. What inspired you to start?
It's gonna maybe sound like a cliche, but I have to say it's my mom, who's been playing music since I can remember, and back in the Soviet Union of the days.
That's actually not a cliche.
I was about to say that is not a cliche.
For parents were against us doing music. That's actually pretty freaking cool.
I end up in banking school just because my mom did not want me in music.
So that's not a cliche. All the way out of it.
She was playing the music, but it's not like she was for me playing music.
What did she play?
In his early stuff. You know, I was lucky to fall into like the old disco, like the Euro disco age. You know, a lot of artists that was not allowed in the Soviet Union at the time, before it was Russia, so it was like the black market for it. So I have to it will be like Grace Jones, Donna Summer, Georgia Mortar, that's like the Jean Martin, and so a lot of European artists, as much as some American, like ABBA, like the obvious disco of the day, the Bee Gees, of course, all that stuff. And if you underground artists, so to speak, underground at the time, like mostly European, disco.
Yes. And
it kind of grew on me, and to be honest, it was like looking at the record sleeves when I was a little boy, being so colorful and so sexy, in the ways that just drew me to it, and I started collecting records, and then getting into the music more and more.
Wow, that's really interesting, actually. So you really are deeply rooted in disco.
Yeah, been like a disco collector, and for some since those days, and when we migrated here, it just the music helped me to adjust to the process.
Yeah, I guess you were visually and sonically inspired, because as you say, those album covers were loud. They were very artsy as well.
I love them. And if you look at the old disco covers, they're really colorful, really dancey, really sexy. In that way, it was, and especially where I'm coming from, where you didn't have things like that. As being a younger boy, that really attracted you, and like Grace Jones.
Not to even skip interview banter, but that, I guess, would explain a lot of your inspiration for the art side, besides the music, from the art of what you do, what describes disco. So that's actually interesting to know that.
Yeah, well, I got that name from someone who I worked with for a while.
Yeah, how do you get that name, Mean Disco?
It was a friend, and like a mentor in a way. Like I looked up to him for many years. He's been a great DJ and been called the DJ of DJs here in the States.
Is
and
that
really
Mr. Danny Tenaglia?
Yeah, that's been Danny Tenaglia. He kind of came up with that name and kind of stuck, and it was like a joke for a little while. It was funny, and I've used it, and I used it for the name of some parties before, and then I got back to doing music full time and producing. I was like, hey,
That is a being name, though.
Yeah, but you know what it really is after a time.
name.
I guess mean disco, in terms of mean, is just something that is more, more aggressive in a good way. Which is house music, really. If you take disco and you add a lot more bass, you add that's mean. In the sense of like that's more banging. Versus like the old school disco and stuff. So it's just really, another way to say house music to me.
Awesome.
So
awesome.
you have played in New York City and out of the country as well. How did you come about from here to there? Like how did you come about with all that? Especially on the DJ aspect of it.
Well, it's really been, a hobby for many years. I've been playing here in New York for over 12 years, but in the beginning it was like a hobby, playing a lot of small parties, after parties, doing a couple of raves, especially in the early age. Playing abroad really has been in Eastern Europe, because that's where, being from Russia and having like a lot of friends there, and doing a couple of like groove cruises in Europe and the North Sea and stuff. But most recently, just having gigs in in South America. But because I was had our own party weekly, I had to give up years and years of gigs to be on top of the weekly parties that we've had here in New York.
Yes.
What's the difference? I think you would say in overseas parties in the scene as opposed to New York.
Over the years, it's changed quite a bit. And it's a big difference in terms of now and then, because everybody looks up to certain crowds and certain knowledge. I think in abroad, like in Europe, people are more knowledgeable about the music and more ahead with the music.
Yes.
And especially when it comes to underground. In the States, it's more like, the acceptance and the numbers, and people are really just like picking up the excitement behind it, but it's almost like hype driven.
We always have a conversation about that, because we play out a couple of major clubs starting out, and it always seemed like we had to play what was popular on the radio. I love listening to a lot of overseas music. That's my thing. When I explore music, I've always checked that side more than New York. So we had a conversation about that, and it's always one of our questions to our guests, like, what's the significance between abroad and New York? So it's good to know that.
Yeah, between the top 40, the top 40s, and the underground.
Yeah, underground is pretty dominant, and you have house music playing in the UK and London and all the main stations. It's pretty much as accepted as a given.
Okay.
Versus it changing now. Like you turn it in your radio station and you go anywhere, that type of music is predominant. There, everybody knows. It's not, nobody's surprised when they hear dance music. And then you go by country. Germany, UK. And Italy, Spain, depending on the artists and what the sound is like. But mostly, just the biggest difference, I think, is because in Europe, they grew into it a long time ago. In the United States, it's kind of like catching up.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, there's underground, most respected communities, like you mentioned, in Detroit, where the techno comes from, and the most respected artists in the world, all over, especially in Europe, come from Detroit. Some of these festivals, it's just, that's how it is.
Show your jacket, everybody. See his jacket.
This is what he did while we were playing, by the way.
Detroit. Yes. So this is another thing. You are the creative director for Sullivan Room.
Yeah, that's recently got shut down.
What?
Recently got shut down 2 months ago.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Cool. Well, so what happened? It's not really the details we posted on the website and on Facebook, but pretty much it's going over the problems with the landlord in the city pushing out really pushing out places and clubs and parties in terms of that. But it's not we were looking to close in 2014 and move to another location anyway. Okay, but you still have the São Paulo.
We're hosting parties and we're setting up parties now, especially because the label Sullivan Records, we're setting this up We have a lot of friends in Brazil for a long history. It's a story on its own. And in Sao Paulo, it's great. It's one of the biggest cities in the world, and in South America after like Mexico City, and also in St. Petersburg in Russia. We're gonna have something going in Spain, in Ibiza this year, and all because of the wonderful artists that've been supporting, that've been on board, for the label as well.
Yeah, that happens.
How many
because
artists do you guys have on Sullivan Records, Sullivan Room Records?
Currently, up to date,
propaganda, right?
Yeah, we have a lot. Like, there's 40 releases currently. We
Wow.
launched the label back in September. So we've been, getting ready to launch it for about a year and a half. It's been like a baby, like a full-time baby. And
Is Sullivan Room Records going to be based on more, I would say, underground sound, or it's going to be pop as well?
no, there's not going to be any pop or commercial sound. The Sullivan Room has always been about techno and house.
Awesome.
And those are the genres that it's going to be on.
I
love that.
actually love that because it
Yes.
reminds me of Ministry of Sound. Because Ministry of Sound as well, they almost got shut down too, and they've been there forever, which amazing. But they have their record label and they support the underground artists, which is really fantastic. And I love that the fact that there's something like that here in New York.
Yeah, well, it would have been 12 years in December, and Sergei Sklarenko, he's the guy, he's a partner in business, and he's the guy who opened it back in 2001, and he had a vision and he tried to stick with it over the years. But it's really the artists that were on board for all this time, like true talents that, that would just love what they do and do what they love on and on and on and on, that happen to be more popular now than ever.
Yes,
They've been doing their thing, and of course it's thanking the artists for kind of keeping the vibe, keeping the underground, like no hype type of
Yes,
attitude.
yes, of course. Now, you have put out a few tracks out. Are you planning to come out with an album anytime soon?
Well, I think in today's world, and especially in the digital world, unless you're really come from a background of being a musician, that you're recording an artist, but being no matter how many records I put out, I always say that I'm a DJ first.
Okay.
In that sense. And although like I play guitar and before, and I don't see myself really working on an album at this point, which would be cool, in terms of collaborations and everything. But I think it's more about focusing on a specific track,
Singles,
and going for the sound and making something that it really speaks.
If you would have to define mean disco, your sound, your genre, because when we listen to music, EDM music or underground music, it's split into so many things. There's trance, progressive. There's so many different styles in just that. What would describe mean disco sound?
I use a term that has been used. I didn't come up with it, but I think it's a really good to use. It's tech disco.
Okay.
So it's like there's tech house. Why can't there be tech disco?
That's
But in
interesting.
reality, I like to get more to the roots of electronica aspect of house or techno. Put more electronica into it. Put a little bit of the influences of Detroit. Of electronica and stuff. So right now I'm working in a few new projects. There's a couple of remixes coming up. And being at a housey vibe, like really funky, which is also very fun, but, I think for me, it's important to have that electronica in it, Samples are cool, all the bouncy bass lines are cool, but I like to, get the electronica part in there too.
Awesome. And if you had to pick other artists that you enjoy right now, what would they be?
Well, I like to think, there's not a right now. I like to pay credit when credit is due, and I have to say, for me, guys like Carl Craig, from Detroit,
Yes.
he's the man, all hands down. Calling out obvious names, of course. Guys like DJ Hell from Germany, keeping like that kind of like electro stuff going on. and so many like legends to name, of course, but those are the biggest influences that I would look up to. Not necessarily influencing my sound, but influencing me as artists and just like putting me in the inspirational mode.
Okay.
But I have to say though, I'm sorry.
Yes.
That there's a lot. There are a lot of young talent, especially the past
yes.
year, 2 years. I have to say, it's just mind blowing. Music is getting. This is good time for music right now.
Yes,
a lot of
yes.
new artists.
Like Martin
100%.
Garrix,
We're
he's
very
only
excited about
17.
it. That's exactly, we're excited about that, and that's why we're excited to have this radio show as well, because it gives us an opportunity to really talk about those things and put it out to New York.
Yeah, you guys are doing a good job. I appreciate it.
you.
I checked out a couple of shows. You're putting the EDM as a general, and it gives an idea for people to introduce themselves.
you.
Well,
one more question before you start playing. And then after that, of course, we're going to continue.
Yep.
Now, EDM, electronic dance music. For us, that's what it means. Electronic dance music that goes to every genre of electronic dance music. But for a lot of places and a lot of clubs or a lot of DJs find that name as like a plague. Like you can't
It was hard for us.
mention
we're
EDM.
on the fence with the name.
yeah, absolutely.
So what do you think about that? What is your opinion to that?
I think it's because of all the negatives attached, the term, all the negative mass publicity attached, through the festivals that's been going on, through, drug overdoses or misusage,
Yeah.
and everything else has been attached to EDM, and guys who really dedicated their life to techno,
Yes.
or to house music, they don't want to, be attached to something that they have nothing to do with.
Okay.
I think it's the main thing. I'm sure everybody has their own reason, and maybe because of the artists that are, of course, linked to those genres and stuff.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing for
So
us.
you think it's just to commercialize that name EDM? Is it too commercial?
Absolutely, it's commercialized,
Yes.
and it's also because of the guys that are making it look bad and making it sound bad.
Okay.
I want to ask two quick questions, and it's probably going to be fast. My question to you is, DJs from then, DJs from now, the scene, how different is it? And if you had some advice for up-and-coming DJs and people just wanting, what would that be?
Well, in terms of advice, I think it's just sticking true to your own self. Whatever kind of music you make, whether it's EDM, house, or techno, even if it's commercial, don't let anybody get you down. Just go with your heart, because when you go with your heart, people are gonna feel it. It's the only time when you're gonna reach people. They're gonna be honest, loyal fans. Is when they see that you're doing it because you love it, not because it's cool, not because it's EDM, house, or techno. Whatever sound you support. Just go where your heart is.
Awesome. And DJs from then and now?
In terms of
style, in terms of technology, or anything in general?
I think as long as you're impressing the crowd and you're not living on something that is no longer there, I think it's important. I think there's a lot more better producers now than DJs, I have to say.
Yes.
But then again, there's DJs, that old school DJs that they need to step up to the game too. And it's like right now that's what it's all about. You see more and more live. Those guys
Yeah.
who can produce and they can DJ.
I think this is for you people tuning in from abroad and in New York. This is really we need to bring him back and have more time to actually sit down and talk to him. He really has amazing information.
Yes. But we will talk to him again. He will play.
But we need to sit down with him for an hour and really talk to him, because he's freaking got awesome information, and it's just an awesome guy that's played and has done amazing things.
So,
Disco.
Everybody, this is the Pretty Hybrid Show on FLOEmpireRadio.com with our special guest, Mean Disco, and he's going to be playing his set. And we're very excited to have him here. It's an honor, and he has been in the business for a very long time and learned from very, very great people in the business. So if you have any questions later on, please do give us a call at 646-340-0266. And I got that number right.
Thank you.